Our mission here is, well, it's pretty simple. You give us the sources, the complex ideas, and we just dig in. We cut through all the noise to get to those critical insights, those real aha moments for you.
And today we are tackling a question that is so fundamental. I mean, it's not just about what you learn, but it gets right to the heart of how you think, how you synthesize information, and really how you see the world.
Yeah, we're asking, how is your actual cognition, your ability to think deeply, being shaped or maybe filtered by these massive external forces you're using every single day?
And we've zeroed in on two huge ones. First, you've got this incredible, well, ecosystem of digital tools, instant connectivity, everything you rely on for learning, for work, for life.
Right. And the second filter, that's the most basic tool we have, the one we barely even notice. It's the very structure of the language you speak.
And we really need to figure out if these filters are, acting as accelerators, boosting our thinking, or if they're subtly holding us back, maybe making us a bit complacent because everything's so convenient.
The stakes are huge for anyone who's serious about learning. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with this incredible force of technology and what it's doing to our minds.
It's a double-edged sword for sure.
It really is. So let's start with the good news, the case for cognitive augmentation. I mean, the argument that technology is making us smarter, it really all comes down to one word, doesn't it? Access.
That's the one. It is the single most transformative element. The sheer unbelievable accessibility of high-quality knowledge today is, well, it's something previous generations couldn't have even dreamed of.
Right. We're not talking about just, a bigger library.
No. The digital revolution has just torn down these old barriers, geography, cost. Those things used to decide who got to learn what. Now that's changing on a global scale.
So we're talking about, what, billions of people with instant access to vetted, high-level information? It's like a personal interactive university right in your pocket.
And a great example of that is the rise of MOOCs, the massive open online courses. You've got platforms like Coursera, edX, Khan Academy. They're offering full-blown university courses.
And not dumbed-down versions either.
Not at all. You can genuinely dive into quantum mechanics, post-colonial literature, advanced data science, subjects that were locked away in elite universities just a decade or two ago.
And if your goal is to reach that really advanced, say, C1 or C2 level of English, this kind of access is just a superpower.
It's incredibly powerful because you're immediately immersed in how real experts talk. When you're reading published research or reports from, say, The Economist, you're not just learning vocabulary. You are absorbing the structure, the argumentation, the precise language that experts use.
That authentic input is everything at that level.
It's essential for mastering that professional academic style.
And speaking of instant, we have to talk about the search engine. It's become this instant gratification machine for our curiosity. You hit a tricky grammar point, a complex idea, and boom, the answer is right there.
And that speed creates this amazing feedback loop for learning. You have a question, you seek, you find, and that answer, it almost always sparks a new, more interesting question.
So the learner is really in the driver's seat.
Completely. You're not just a passive passenger on some preset curriculum. You're charting your own course.
But the really critical part isn't just finding the info, is it? It's what you're forced to do with it. You have to evaluate it.
Yes. This is where the real deep learning happens. So let's say you're researching something complex, like the ethics of gene editing. You'll find a peer-reviewed paper, a newspaper opinion piece, maybe a blog post from a bioethicist.
All on the same topic, but from totally different worlds.
Exactly. And comparing them forces you to practice critical evaluation. You have to ask, okay, what's the authority here? Is there a bias? What's the evidence? Is it a peer-reviewed study? Or is it, just an emotional appeal?
And that skill translates directly into better communication, which the sources really highlight. You learn to talk about your sources with more precision.
Precisely. You stop just stating facts, and you start making these nuanced claims about the information itself. You start saying things like, While some online sources claim X, peer-reviewed research suggests Y based on a much larger sample size.
That phrasing alone signals a whole different level of thinking.
It shows you're not just consuming information, you're wrestling with it.
Ah!
And that's a hallmark of advanced intellect.
Okay, so let's move from just access to the tools themselves, the ones designed specifically to augment our cognition. They're like these super efficient assistants for our brains.
Well, you've got these incredibly sophisticated productivity apps now, things like Notion, Evernote, Trello. They're not just for to-do lists. They act like an external hard drive for your thoughts.
Right, they help you wrangle huge amounts of information, manage complex projects.
You can structure arguments, categorize notes. For an advanced English learner, this is a godsend. You can sort new vocabulary by theme, link grammar concepts to examples, schedule spaced repetition.
You're basically building your own custom learning system.
You're turning chaos into an organized, navigable map. It's incredibly powerful.
And then you have the more direct cognitive enhancers, like the advanced grammar checkers. I'm thinking of Grammarly or Pro Writing Aid.
And they go so far beyond a simple spell check now. They're giving you real-time feedback on your sentence structure, on clarity, on tone.
But here's the key point, which the sources really hammer home. It's about active engagement, not passive acceptance. You can't just click accept all.
No, you can't. You have to analyze the suggestion. Ask yourself, why is this redundant? What makes this alternative more precise? When you do that, you internalize the pattern. You're not just fixing one document, you're improving your actual writing skill.
This all ties into something called cognitive load theory, right?
It does. Our working memory, the mental space where we actively think and process things, it's surprisingly small. Learning happens best when we reduce the unnecessary mental clutter, what scientists call extraneous cognitive load.
So if a tool is handling the boring stuff, like catching typos or organizing your notes,
it frees up your limited working memory for the hard stuff, for grasping a really complex idea, or for creative thinking, or for figuring out, say, the third conditional in English. The tool is helping you focus your mental energy where it matters most.
It's augmenting your thinking, not replacing it.
That's the ideal, yes. And we see this everywhere. Learning apps like Duolingo or Memrise use spaced repetition. That's just pure cognitive science, delivering information at the exact right moment to lodge it in your long-term memory.
And the future of this is even more personalized with AI.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine an AI tutor that spots your specific weakness, like you always mix up certain phrasal verbs, and it instantly generates custom exercises just for you right on the spot.
That kind of targeted practice could accelerate mastery like crazy.
It's a total game changer for efficiency.
Okay, and the last big point on the smarter side is global collaboration, the fact that technology has just erased distance.
We all use Zoom and Teams for meetings, but the intellectual benefit is so much deeper. You can have a real-time conversation with a native speaker or an expert on the other side of the planet.
And that's where you get that crucial, spontaneous practice. Handling misunderstandings, thinking on your feet. You can't get that from a textbook.
You really can't. And language exchange apps like Tandem or HelloTalk, they expose you to this incredible diversity of accents, slang, cultural nuances.
Things you'd never find in a classroom.
Exactly. You might be discussing global economics with someone from Singapore one minute and then British slang with someone from Manchester the next. That constant adaptation builds incredible mental flexibility.
Even online communities like Reddit or specialized forums are part of this. You're practicing written arguments, learning the specific jargon of a field.
You're learning the culture of that intellectual community, and all of this exposure builds what we call intercultural competence. It's a vital skill for anyone working in a global context.
So the case for technology making us smarter it's pretty strong. Unbelievable access, tools that free up our brains, global collaboration. But it feels like there's a huge but coming.
There is a very big one, because all of this convenience it comes with a serious risk.
Right. Let's get into that. The case for cognitive offloading. The idea that all this convenience is actually making us lazier, where does that start?
It starts with the core mechanism, which the sources call cognitive offloading.
Yeah.
And that's the central danger. It's when we rely too much on our external tools for tasks our brains really should be doing for exercise.
Give me an example.
Sure. It's using a calculator for simple math you could do in your head. It's trusting spell check so completely that you forget the basic rules. It's using GPS for every trip until you can't form a mental map of your own city anymore.
So it's like a muscle. If you don't use it, it atrophies.
Precisely. And for an advanced learner, the risk is huge with things like translation apps or AI writers. If you use them to bypass the necessary struggle, the struggle of analyzing a sentence, of guessing from context, of trying to remember a word yourself, you're not actually learning.
You're just getting the answer. You're skipping the mental workout that actually builds the skill.
You are. And this connects directly to dual process theory in psychology. We have two systems of thought. System one is fast, intuitive, automatic. System two is slow, effortful, analytical. Deep learning requires system two.
And technology is constantly pushing us towards system one, the path of least resistance.
It is. The whole digital environment is often engineered to discourage that deep system two thought.
You mean with the constant stream of short, bite-sized content, social media feeds, short videos?
Exactly that. It trains our brains to expect constant novelty and rapid consumption. It weakens our focus muscles.
And that completely undermines deep reading, doesn't it? The kind of immersive focus you need for a complex academic article or a dense novel. It's just getting eroded.
It is. Our online habit is to skim, scan, jump from link to link. We're losing the patience and the mental stamina for sustained engagement.
And the biggest consequence of this seems to be on our memory. The whole idea of memory offloading.
Yes, the Google effect. The research is pretty clear on this. When we know we can look something up instantly, our brains are less likely to make the effort to commit it to memory. Why bother, right?
So we're getting good at knowing where to find information, but not at actually knowing the information.
Yeah, it's the danger. The act of active retrieval, that effortful pulling of information from your own memory, that's what strengthens the neural pathways. If you just look it up on your phone, you skip that crucial step.
Which means you might recognize a word when you see it, but you can't produce it yourself in a conversation.
It creates a kind of fragile, surface-level knowledge.
And this offloading goes beyond just memory, right? It affects our problem-solving skills too.
It does. If you rely on AI or templates to write your reports and essays, you skip the hardest parts of thinking. Structuring your own unique argument, synthesizing information from different sources, finding a new angle.
You're essentially following a recipe instead of learning how to cook.
That's a great analogy. And in the workplace, this could mean we're automating away the very tasks that build crucial human skills like resilience, creative problem solving, and critical thinking.
And creativity itself could be at risk. If we lean too heavily on AI to generate content, we might lose our own voice, our own unique spark.
The best advice there is to use AI as a sparring partner. Use it to generate counterarguments or brainstorm ideas, but the final crucial work of crafting the argument, that has to be human.
Okay, what about the social and emotional side of this? The impact on our communication skills?
Well, less face-to-face interaction means less practice with the subtle nonverbal parts of communication. Reading body language, tone of voice, conversational turn-taking.
All the stuff that gets lost in a text message.
Right. And there's a real risk that our empathy can start to chip away when we lose those nonverbal cues. It's harder to connect, harder to understand nuance.
And then there's the really insidious problem of echo chambers and filter bubbles.
The algorithms on social media are designed to keep you engaged. And the easiest way to do that is to show you things you already agree with.
So your existing beliefs just get confirmed over and over again.
And that severely limits your exposure to different, challenging points of view. But real intellectual growth comes from grappling with ideas that make you uncomfortable, that challenge your assumptions. Filter bubbles actively prevent that from happening.
And finally, there's the constant, relentless battle against digital distraction.
The notifications, the endless tabs, the constant task switching. The research is absolutely conclusive on this. It shatters our focus, it increases our cognitive load, and it makes our thinking less coherent.
And these platforms are designed to be addictive, aren't they? They're engineered to keep us clicking.
They are. It's that dopamine loop of likes and notifications. It prioritizes instant gratification over the long, hard, sustained effort that mastery requires.
So focus is no longer just something you have. It's a skill you have to actively train.
It absolutely is. You have to be deliberate about it. Using techniques like the Pomodoro method, creating tech-free zones for deep work, it's about consciously designing your environment to support focus, not destroy it.
But is that enough? I mean, given how persuasive the design is, can we really just rely on self-discipline? Or do we need to fundamentally rethink which tools we even allow into our deep workspaces?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think for most of us, willpower alone is not enough. The environment is just too hostile to focus. So it has to be about strategic integration. It means actively choosing tools that enhance focus, like a distraction-free writing app, and ruthlessly eliminating the ones that fragment it. It's about building a cognitive ecosystem that works for you, not against you.
That's a perfect bridge, because this whole digital world, we interact with it through language. And you're saying the digital filter is actively reshaping the linguistic one.
It is. New jargon is appearing all the time. Doom scrolling, metaverse. How we communicate is evolving at lightning speed.
So let's dive into that. The second great filter, the linguistic mind.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the structures we use to communicate are fundamentally intertwined with how we perceive reality. We're moving from the external tool of technology to the most fundamental internal tool of all, language.
And this whole conversation really starts with two names, right? Spear and Whorf.
It does, the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. It was this pioneering idea that language doesn't just mirror reality, it actively shapes it. It helps create the reality its speakers perceive.
And they had two versions of this idea. The first was pretty extreme, linguistic determinism.
The strong version, yeah. It basically said that language puts your thoughts in a cage. If your language didn't have a word for a concept, you couldn't think it, period.
Sure. Which, just feels wrong. We invent new words all the time. People think of things before the word exists.
Exactly. That strong version is pretty much rejected now because it was just too rigid. Thought is more flexible than that.
So what's the version that people actually take seriously today?
That's linguistic relativity, the weaker version. And this is the one with a lot of scientific support. It says language doesn't trap thought, but it influences it. It guides it, it biases it. It makes certain ways of thinking easier or more habitual for you.
Okay, so it's more of a nudge than a cage.
A perfect way to put it.
And the classic example Whorf used was about the concept of time in the Hopi language versus English.
Right. In English, our grammar is obsessed with tense, past, present, future. We chop time up into these neat little blocks, and that encourages us to think of time as a commodity, something you can save, spend, waste.
It's a line we move along.
It is. Whereas Whorf argued that the Hopi language focused more on duration, on cycles, on things unfolding. This, he suggested, led to a more process-oriented view of time, not a linear, quantifiable one.
Now, I know his work on Hopi is a bit controversial.
It is. The specifics are debated. But the underlying principle that language shapes our concept of time is strongly supported by more modern research, especially Lera Boroditsky's work on spatial metaphors for time.
Yeah. The idea that in English, we always talk about time horizontally. We look forward to the future. We put the past behind us.
Correct. For us, time moves along a horizontal axis. But in Mandarin Chinese, it's very common to use vertical metaphors. The word for up, sheng, can mean the previous week, The word for down, she can mean the next week.
So time flows downwards for them, conceptually.
In a way, yes. And Boroditsky did these fascinating experiments. She found that Mandarin speakers were faster at answering questions about time if they were first primed with a vertical image. English speakers were faster after a horizontal prime.
So it's not just a metaphor, it's actually wired into how the brain processes the information. The linguistic habit literally makes you faster or slower.
Exactly. It shows how deeply these linguistic frames affect our cognition, right down to reaction times.
Okay, so that's the big picture. Let's get into the specifics. How does vocabulary itself carve up reality?
Well, the words you have are the basic tools you use to sort the world into boxes. And when languages give you different boxes, you sort the world differently. The classic example here is color.
Right, the Russian blues.
The Russian blues. So in English, we have one basic word, blue.
Hmm?
Light blue and dark blue are just shades of the same color.
Mm-hmm.
But in Russian, it's not like that. They're two completely different words. Sini for dark blue and goluboy for light blue. They're as different to them as a red and pink are to us. It's a mandatory distinction.
And this has a real measurable effect on perception.
A huge one. Russian speakers are consistently and measurably faster at telling the difference between two shades of blue if one falls into the Sindhi category and the other into the goluboy category.
Wow. So the linguistic boundary actually sharpens their visual perception at that specific point in the color spectrum.
It does. It's like the language has trained their brain to be extra sensitive to that specific difference.
The most mind-bending example of this, for me, is the one about spatial language. The Gugu Yimithir community in Australia.
Oh, it's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So in English, we use egocentric directions. Things are to my left, to your right, in front of me. It's all relative to our own bodies.
Right. Standard stuff?
The Gugu Yimithir don't do that. They almost exclusively use cardinal directions. North, south, east, west. Even for tiny, small-scale spaces.
Wait, so how would that even work, like, in a room?
They wouldn't say, pass the salt. They'd say, there's an ant on your southwest leg, or move your cup a little to the east.
That's my brain just broke.
Yeah.
You would have to know where north is constantly, every second of the day, indoors or out.
You would. The language forces a state of constant, perfect orientation. And as a result, they have navigational and spatial reasoning skills that are, frankly, superhuman to us. They have an incredible sense of dead reckoning because their language demands it of them.
So the language isn't just a communication tool, it's a built-in cognitive training program for navigation.
That is a perfect way to describe it.
Okay, so that's vocabulary. What about the deeper level of grammar? How does that structure our thinking?
If vocabulary gives us the categories, grammar tells us how to relate them. It forces us to pay attention to certain kinds of information. Take grammatical gender, for example, in languages like German or Spanish.
Right, where a table can be male and a chair can be female for no apparent reason.
Exactly, it's arbitrary. And a great example is the word for bridge. In German, die Brücke is feminine. In Spanish, el puente is masculine.
Okay, so what?
Well, researchers asked German and Spanish speakers to describe bridges. The German speakers consistently used words like beautiful, elegant, slender, stereotypically feminine adjectives. The Spanish speakers used words like strong, sturdy, tall, stereotypically masculine adjectives.
Whoa, so the arbitrary gender of the noun was actually coloring their perception of the real-world object.
It was subtly biasing how they conceptualized the bridge, adding this whole layer of associative meaning that isn't there in English. It shows how these deep grammatical features can shape our thoughts in ways we're not even aware of.
But I have to ask, is that really the grammar doing the work? Or is it just reflecting existing cultural stereotypes about masculinity and femininity?
That's the critical question, and it's probably a feedback loop. The culture informs the associations, but the grammar, by forcing you to use that gendered word every single time, makes that association constant and automatic. It keeps that link active in your mind in a way that just doesn't happen in English.
So the grammar reinforces and perpetuates the cultural bias.
In a powerful way, yes. And another amazing example is evidentiality.
Evidentiality. Okay, what's that?
It's a grammatical feature in some languages, like Turkish, where you are required to specify the source of your knowledge.
What do you mean?
Well, in English, I can just say, he left the party. In Turkish, the ending of the verb has to show how I know that. Did I see it with my own eyes? Did I infer it because his coat is gone? Or did someone tell me about it?
So you can't just make a statement. The grammar forces you to cite your sources every time you speak.
Exactly. And the cognitive implication is huge. It might foster a heightened, almost automatic sensitivity to evidence and the reliability of information. That constant mental check is just baked right into the language itself.
Wow. Okay, and all of this ties language directly to culture and even emotion.
It's a storehouse of culture. Think about our English idiom, time is money. That phrase isn't just a cute saying, it actively reinforces a cultural value of efficiency and productivity.
And you can contrast that with phrases in other languages that reflect a totally different relationship with time.
Right. Or think about the structure of a language like Arabic, where many words are built from a common three-letter root. The root KTB is about writing, and from it you get kitab, book, katib, writer, maktab, office.
So it highlights the connection between those concepts.
Yes, and some scholars argue this might encourage a more holistic way of thinking, a tendency to see the relationships and unity between things because the language is constantly showing you those connections.
And this brings us to those famous untranslatable words for emotions.
Words like the German Schadenfreude, pleasure from someone else's misfortune, or the Portuguese saudade, that deep, melancholic longing.
Or the Japanese mono no aware, that kind of poignant sadness at the transience of things.
Right, and these aren't just vocabulary curiosities. Having a specific label for a complex emotional state makes that state more recognizable. It makes it easier to identify in yourself and others, to talk about, and to even cultivate.
This connects to the psychology research, doesn't it? The work by Lisa Feldman Barrett on emotional granularity.
It does. Her research shows that people who can differentiate their emotions with more specificity, people who don't just feel bad, but can identify feeling frustrated or disappointed or anxious, have better emotional regulation and better overall mental health.
So a richer emotional vocabulary provided by your language can literally give you better tools for managing your inner life.
That's the idea. And finally, language structure can even influence our default reasoning styles.
You mean holistic versus analytical thinking?
Exactly. So languages like Chinese are highly context dependent. You can often omit the subject of a sentence. This structure is sometimes linked to a more holistic cognitive style, a tendency to see the bigger picture, the relationships, the context first.
Whereas English, with its rigid subject-verb-object structure, always forces us to name the agent, the person doing the thing.
And that's linked to a more analytical style, focusing on individual components, breaking a problem down into its parts, focusing on the main actor. Neither is better, but they are different default strategies for approaching the world, subtly nudged by the grammar we speak every day.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We've got these two huge filters: technology on the outside, language on the inside. What does this actually mean for you, for the learner? The big takeaway seems to be that it all comes down to intentionality.
It really does. And for anyone listening who is bilingual or multilingual, the news is particularly good.
Right, the power of multilingualism. It's about way more than just knowing more words, isn't it?
So much more. The simple act of constantly managing two or more languages, selecting one, inhibiting the other, is like a constant workout for your brain's executive functions.
Executive functions.
Yeah.
You mean things like multitasking, attention control?
Task switching, inhibitory control, cognitive flexibility. The research consistently shows measurable improvements in these areas for bilinguals. The brain just gets better at juggling things.
And there's that amazing research on cognitive reserve from Ellen Ballistock.
Yes. The idea is that this constant mental exercise builds up extra resilience in the brain's networks. It acts as a buffer against age-related cognitive decline.
So being a lifelong bilingual could actually delay the onset of symptoms of things like dementia. That's a massive long-term benefit.
It's a profound finding, and on a more immediate level, being multilingual gives you access to multiple cognitive toolkits. You have different ways of categorizing the world, different cultural metaphors. You can pick the best mental tool for the job.
So you might think through a relationship problem using the nuances of one language, but tackle a technical problem with the precision of another.
Exactly. And most importantly, it gives you what's called metalinguistic awareness. Because you've seen firsthand that languages carve up the world differently, you become acutely aware that your own language is just one lens, not a transparent window onto reality.
And that awareness is the beginning of real empathy and critical thinking.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's boil this all down to some practical takeaways. What should you be doing differently after hearing all this?
First and foremost, it's about mindful technology use, not just self-discipline, but strategic integration. You have to actively choose to use your tools in a way that helps, not hinders.
So that means using apps for efficient drills and practice, but actively avoiding passive consumption where the tool does the thinking for you.
Right. It means doing the hard work yourself first. Try to write the paragraph without AI. Try to solve the problem without a shortcut. Then use the tool to check your work or to get a different perspective.
And it means developing a really high level of digital literacy, which is not just about, knowing which buttons to click.
No, it's about understanding how an algorithm works, how to spot misinformation, how to evaluate bias by comparing multiple sources. These are the fundamental intellectual survival skills for the 21st century.
And you have to manage the overload. Set boundaries, turn off notifications, schedule your tech time so you're in control, not the other way around.
And the second big takeaway is enhancing your critical thinking by being aware of your linguistic filters.
How does that work in practice?
Well, in an academic context, it means recognizing that an English text about a global issue might be carrying all sorts of hidden cultural assumptions in its phrasing. In a professional context, it means being a better communicator in a multicultural team.
Right. If you're having a misunderstanding with a colleague, you can stop and ask, wait, could this be because we have different linguistic habits? Are we conceptualizing time or responsibility differently?
Exactly. It allows you to seek semantic alignment instead of just getting frustrated. And personally, it fosters empathy. When you realize your own language shapes your default thinking, it challenges that dangerous assumption that your way of seeing the world is the only correct way.
Of course, we have to acknowledge the other side of the argument here. The universalists who would say that, core abilities like logic and memory are universal.
And that's a valid point. In that view, language doesn't create new abilities. It just trains existing ones in very specific ways, like with the Gugu Yimithir and their spatial skills.
And we absolutely have to avoid stereotyping. These are group tendencies, not ironclad rules for individuals.
Critically important. Human thought is always more complex than any single linguistic system.
So looking forward, this relationship between language and thought is just going to keep evolving, especially with AI.
Oh, for sure. Think about it. AI models are generating enormous amounts of text. How will the patterns and biases in that machine-generated language subtly influence human cognition over the next few decades?
That's a huge unanswered question. Will it make our language richer or will it homogenize it?
And social media is throwing us all into this chaotic, unprecedented linguistic mix of memes, code switching, and global slang. It's forcing our brains to adapt, to become more flexible and faster at processing variation.
So to wrap this all up, the deep dive shows us that technology is this incredible source of empowerment, but it comes with a very real risk of making us complacent.
And language is this fundamental, invisible force that is actively shaping how you categorize the world, how you perceive reality, and even how you feel.
The bottom line seems to be that the choice is yours. You have to be
Yeah.
intentional. You have to wield your technology strategically and actively protect your own independent critical thinking from the easy path of convenience.
That's it, building those mindful habits, that strong digital and linguistic literacy. That is the absolute key to growth.
So it leaves me with one final thought to leave you with. Given this constant accelerating evolution of our digital tools and our languages, what does human thinking even look like in 50 years? Are we heading towards some kind of globally connected but linguistically uniform mind, or something else entirely?
Are we moving toward an era of hyper-specialized, digitally augmented cognitive toolkits, different for every individual? That is the real challenge for the modern learner, to see the filters, understand their power, and consciously choose your path across all these divides. Something definitely to keep chewing on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.